right. We are live on Facebook.
Well, have no idea how hard it was for us to come live.
I know. You will not stop us. Amy's computer and internet service and the rest of our lives. We are here.
It's just our attempts to do these live videos is like the hero's journey.
It seriously is. Like the whole universe is like, you will not discuss episodes of things to people on her story. But we're here. We persevered. We did not give up. We kept our cool.
We're strong women.
We are. High five. Oh, but we are. You know what? I don't
know how to do it.
On the right view. There. That's better. No, I'm this way. I think if we both go this way, it will look like. That looks like a high five to me. Does that look like a high five to you? No.
I mean, besides the fact that our hands like morph into like the abyss. Yes.
We will find on when we look it back to see if we'll both be like on opposite sides.
It's like when we did one of our movie reviews and there were multiple couples. Was it Love Actually?
It was, and you
had to draw from a hat. Yeah, and it was like every time I was like, where is that?
Like, here, take it.
It was fun though. I actually think the video would be better if it didn't look right.
Oh yeah, it would look ridiculous, and I'm sure it does look ridiculous. That's part of our charm.
Absolutely.
Looking ridiculous. So we're going to talk to you guys tonight about the Netflix craze.
Yeah.
The latest craze called Love is Blind. They have everything.
This show really kind of does, but not always in a good way.
No. Everything that you could expect, I guess, in a relationship jammed into a TV show. So like, sure, Netflix, fine.
But also like Instagram influencers, we have them. Copious amounts of drinking, we have them. Guys who don't know when to shut up, we have them. Like, we have all the things.
We have all the things. Catty girls.
Yeah.
Going after each other to get a guy.
Yeah.
Yes, we have everything. But tonight we're going to talk about mainly the concept of the show from the perspective of dating coaching. And then we're going to dive a little bit into episode 1. But yes, we've turned a corner from you because this show has been such a craze. Like from the second it came out, I was like, Jen, we need to review the show. And then it just got bigger and bigger. And I was like, we really need to. And then Jen watched it this weekend and then she was like, okay, we need to. So here we are.
So I started watching it while my husband was walking the dog and he came back in and he was like, what are you watching?
Michael had the same reaction. He didn't admittedly sit with me. Michael like walked through, but like, you know, when they like stop and stare at the screen in the middle, but they're like, I'm not watching. And
I'm like, doing other things, clearly.
Right. Granted, he does that no matter what's on the screen, but this one particularly, he started asking me questions and he's like, this is ridiculous.
But it's so funny. I mean, mine had his own criticisms as well, but he would deny this to the grave, but he was like, you know how addicted I get to shows like this.
I love it. We tried to get him on as a guest speaker. It will never happen.
It'll never happen.
But we'll bring you his wisdom as like third party.
Yes, I'm happy to.
It'll be hearsay wisdom, but wisdom nonetheless.
I didn't like actually ask for his permission to share his thoughts, but I'm sure it's fine. My husband is a very private person, so that's the only reason I think like, should I have asked? But I'm sure it's fine.
I'm gonna put this light on because I feel like I'm very dark. It's a little better.
My glasses put me in shadow.
I do exist.
I don't like that.
So okay, let's think about this concept of the show and what we think about it. So basically the structure of the show is that they have a group of women living in one loft area and a group of men living in another loft area, and
they're nearby.
They're nearby, but they don't get to see each other. And then they come into like these weird, I don't know if you guys seen the show The Circle, but these pods. Have you seen The Circle? Did I talk to you about The Circle?
I haven't, but I listened to a podcast about it, so I have a somewhat general understanding.
It's the same idea. They can't ever see each other, but they talk through like these walls in these pods. And then from there, you can get engaged. If you get engaged, you have a certain amount of time to get engaged. If you get engaged, then you see each other, and then you're going to go on like a trip together and then see if it works out.
In the real world. So they keep using that phrase of like the real world.
Right. On vacation. Because the vacations are such real.
Right. Well, and like simulating that this is not real.
Right. It's not real because they're cut off. They don't have phones. They're cut off from any sort of, I guess, like outside world stuff. They just are there focusing on what's happened. Like they're writing things down in books. It's like that archaic.
Right. How crazy.
How's that? Seriously, I mean, who writes things down in books? Oh,
I know. I have my notebook next to me too.
But it's interesting to see it because it does look weird, doesn't it? To have like all like the guys go in with like their little notebooks writing things down.
Yeah, like that notion of it is on one hand, it's sort of like nice and cute, like that they're actually like scribbling these little notes about each other.
Sure.
But we're going to talk about sort of the issue with taking away all of their other, what the show would classify as distractions, but what we would classify as life.
Right. Compatibility testers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the whole premise is, I feel like how they present it is like, if this works, then we are not a shallow society. And if it doesn't work, then we are one. And I would say that that is a false premise, that there are so many issues with this show.
Yeah, the deck is really stacked against that premise that like, if it works out, then it proves we're not shallow, as opposed to proving something else.
Right. Our two options seem to be that either this works out and we are not totally wrapped up in people's physical appearances, or it doesn't work out and we are completely wrapped up in people's physical appearances. But physical appearances are not the only reason that when you get out into the real world with somebody that it doesn't work out. Or if you were to get engaged with somebody in an episode, you might find out later that they're not someone you want to marry. And it doesn't mean that you're shallow if you do that. Like it's like, wow, Netflix and Nick Lachey.
But also, wow, because we wouldn't be talking about this if not for this show. So in some ways, it's going to allow people to really assess what they value. And like, if they were in this scenario, how would they approach it?
Yeah. And we coach a lot about not giving up your life to date, because then it's inauthentic. If you have stuff that you have in your life and you're removing those things in order to date, then when that person ends up in your life and you start wanting to bring all these things back in, and they're like, what the hell is this all about? You can't really be pissed about it. And we also talk about how like text relationships and stuff like that someone could be feeding you lines and you don't really know until like you really get them out into the real world. I will say both those things are what can happen in this premise, because those guys or those women could be saying whatever they want to say in order to entice the other side or get them to like you. And then you can go out there and that might not be who they actually are. We don't know. You find out it's not what you say, it's what you do. So to have people in these bubbles getting to know each other, I feel like, I don't know, it's more than just not seeing somebody physically. It's not seeing somebody in life and seeing how they actually are.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that sort of immediately jumped out to the both of us in episode 1 is, you can choose to get engaged at any time, and that these people are talking to multiple people. So sometimes the decision to get engaged is really one motivated by, well, if I don't ask now, someone else will.
Yeah, because on top of it, which we see more in a little bit later, but they're also set up to go back to a loft with the small pool of people who are talking to the same other people. So you go back and some girl comes back and it's like, oh, I'm so in love with so-and-so. It's like, ah, shit, I better like hurry this up.
Right.
Because, or vice versa, because now we've created this idea, this scarcity around, I better move forward, which is 100% the mindset that we coach against. The idea that you have a limited pool and a limited amount of time and you better lock it down real fast or you're going to miss out is not the right mindset to go into dating with at all.
Right. And that even, and the competitive aspects of the premise really forces these people to approach their, like, they call them dates, their 1 hour, I'm assuming they're about an hour sessions with individual people. They use that time to ask very like intimate questions because they want to show that they're willing to move beyond where the other person is, because they feel like they're fighting. If it's two girls who are interested in the same guy, she might be like, okay, well, I need to make sure that we talk about this so that he sees that I'm blank, but I have to do it before the other girl, which means you might actually be sort of jumping over these more like timely topics early on in dating. Kind of, which speaks to another thing that you and I are big on in our coaching, is that like 1 or 2 or 3 dates does not a relationship make.
Right.
That part of the goal of dating is that seeing someone time and time again allows there to be a chemistry and intimacy that can build. But through this, a lot of it is very forced because you're competing and you feel like you only have a limited amount of time.
Yeah, it's very Hollywood love definition. Like, love is blind. Like, when we talk about the difference between infatuation and love, like love is a verb. It is an action. It is a commitment. It is different than a feeling that you get. Like, it's just not, at least not in our coaching. Like, it's not some fluttery thing that you don't know where it comes from. And it kind of like magically falls in your lap. And once you feel it, then that must mean that it's it. And then you commit to this person and they end up being a totally different person. But you loved them. You loved them. Like, it's a whole, like what their whole concept, like, let's get down to what, if you're going to spend your life with somebody, like, wouldn't you want to like really get to know them before you decide? I feel like we're losing all logic here.
That definition of love also makes it as if you're completely out of control.
Yes. No control.
Yeah. And then therefore, so that can go both ways. It can go like, I'm afraid of it because it would mean I'm completely out of control. Or you have women who are waiting to be swept off their feet because they think that's what it's supposed to feel like. When frankly, like you said, that's sort of this myth. Like if you're feeling swept off your feet, like where's your brain in all this?
Yes. And for the women who have felt it, if you feel it, you could be having certain reactions that are that's wiring from like not really healthy places. Like when we talk about like Jessica being like, ooh, I like Barnett because he comes off as like a player.
Yes.
Red flag, red flag, red flag. So you get those warm and fuzzies around a player? Okay, yeah. Well then we need to like work on that first before you start going out and just like, what do you think is going to happen with Barnett then? If you are getting signs that he's a player and then you're picking players because emotionally you feel like attracted to them because they're whatever. There are so many reasons that people get attracted to players, and she's not the only one, but she like said it. Like she just said it. And you're like, oh my God, you know your flag. You know your red flag. So
it's like she knows it, but she doesn't know it.
right. So then it's like the shock of, I want to spend the rest of my life with somebody, but I'm attracted to players. So if I want to be actually happy, I have to pick a player, but then I'm not going to be happy because he's a player. And the truth is that when you get past that underlying stuff, you can feel real love and warm and fuzzies to somebody who, guess what, is going to treat you right and is going
Yeah.
to be consistent and there for you and like a wonderful life partner and, you know, life partner. I know I just said that, but like, let it sink in, like life partner, not like it felt really good in the beginning and now but when I brought it and tested it in reality, there was nothing there to sustain it. That's when we're driving, it's not just on our emotions, because we're not saying like we coach to not fall in love. We both very much fell in love. But there was also is this somebody I want to spend the rest of my life with? Like there was a step back of like, is this a good match for me? And when you're just like, oh, I got warm and fuzzies here, and you're not doing any of that logical reasoning, you end up with the wrong person. I mean, you just end up with somebody who's fulfilling some emotional hole or miswiring in your brain from when you were younger.
Yeah.
Often made by shows like this, right? Like it's often, that's where the holes come from. Like this bullshit we get told about love.
Yeah, it's interesting because Barnett, just as like a man, the one that Jessica likes, his player vibe, just seems to be wholly immature and nowhere near ready to be in a serious relationship.
Right. It's all about him being able to see who he can get to be attracted to him. Like
yeah,
he's not
it feels
really,
like a game.
it's all about him.
Yes. It's all about his jokes. And like anytime someone's gotten serious, he makes like a sex joke.
Right. So it's all about, which I mean, part of the dating is like it's trying yourself on around other people. That's what dating is. But he's
Right.
not, it's a game. It's like how many people can I attract to me? And it's not authentic. It's like when we talk about like not giving you guys gimmicks to bring on dates, it's because we could give you gimmicks and you could get guys with those gimmicks, but they're not going to necessarily be the right guys. And Barnett is all about gimmicky stuff and trying to get as many people attracted to him as possible. Does Santiago want to hop on here and talk to us?
No, it was.
Watched it.
Sorry, my dog was making those noises, like whale noises. Did you hear them?
No, I didn't hear them.
That's why I started laughing, and then I was like, "She's gonna make it again," because she came close to me, but she didn't.
Okay.
So the other thing, and this is me coming at it from like a style point of view and feeling like, and I know in this premise, like they're in the pod, no one's going to see them, but also you're on TV and people are going to see you. But Barnett one day was wearing like ripped up sweatpants.
I did think that, like, I kept going, like, they're not seeing each other, so why aren't they just in pajamas? But then I'm like, oh yeah, they're on TV, so they're like getting some clothes on again.
It's been fascinating to me just watching what they wear, because most of them are like dressing up for these pod meetings. And part of me wonders, is that like because, well, at first I was like, is that because there's always the potential that they'll propose, and because I thought the like pod door would drop and then you'd see each other that way, but that's not. So really I have no idea why they're dressing up.
They're dressing up because they're on TV.
Yeah,
because you know what scene is going to be shown.
Yeah, because one couple we didn't talk about, Cameron and Lauren, like he put on a suit to propose.
I know they got dressed up. Well, she was dressed up too, so she knew.
She was wearing like a black dress.
I know, she knew it was coming, and that's there. They do seem to know when the proposal is coming.
Okay.
It seems like that to me just by the way that they dress. But yeah,
Okay.
the dressing is interesting to me. I feel like some of the women look uncomfortable and in what they're wearing, and I'm like, ugh, if I was just like lounging on a couch somewhere, I feel like I would 100% be in like some jammies. Like, I don't know, like I just would want to be comfortable. But the other thing that I thought was also uh fault fault in the premise is
How much
that,
they're drinking?
what'd you say? How much
How
they're
much
drinking?
they're
Yeah, that wasn't what
drinking?
I was gonna say. This was the other one, but the drinking, yes, is interesting.
Well, it's just, and it appears that they sit in these pods like all day.
Right, they're like drinking from like 9 o'clock. Like, I gotta go on a date now. I feel like I'd be like trashed by date 3, like totally
And,
slurring.
right. And granted, we have no idea when they're drinking what.
Right,
Because sometimes it looks like they might just be drinking water.
right,
But there are other times where I'm like, I've seen you have 3 glasses of wine.
right.
Maybe it's all the same glass. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot. It seems like all day. The
Yeah.
other side is that yes, love is blind, right? So they're not seeing each other, right? Whatever. But everybody on the show is relatively good looking by general standards.
Yes. I had that thought as well. That like by going on this show, you sort of assume that the other people are going to be attractive. It did make me, so that thought that I had made me think of, I don't remember what this show was called. It was like Beauty and the Something. It wasn't Beauty and the Beast, but it was like a nerdy guy and a beautiful
I
girl.
know what you're talking about when they're like in a house together.
Yeah, and then they had to have like competitions every week.
Yes, I don't. Oh my God! Someone comment below what it was. I don't know. We won't see it tonight, but
The Beauty and the Dweeb. It was something like that where they used a
I know
spin-off
what
of
you're talking about. Yeah.
but that show is fascinating too. Um like looking back on it, because they would sort of mess with both parties. Like I remember there was one where they brought in good looking guys like halfway through to see how the women like responded to the like male models and how it impacted relationships. But so that one was purely based on physical appearance, and then this one is devoid of it, but neither one to me really.
Well, it's not your physical. I mean, it's just the whole thing, and it doesn't make you shallow to want to be attracted to someone and feel attractive back. But we don't all uh, we don't all find the same people attractive, because
Right.
then we'd all, I mean, all the time we, Jen and I talk about this. Like, she'll talk about a guy, like a famous person, and I'll be like, ew, whatever. And I'll talk about somebody else and she'll be like, ew. And it's good because then, or else we'd all be chasing the same person. Like, we don't all like the same personalities. We don't all like the same looks. We don't all like the same body types. Like, we are all into different things. And that's what's so wonderful about life, because when we say to ourselves like, oh my God, I have to like drop these pounds in order to find a guy, or I have to act this way in order to find a guy, that's all bullshit, because there's a guy who is going to love you just the way that you are. You just have to be who you are
Right.
and like let that happen, you know? So, and you have to love who you are too. Like, that's a major step. I feel like when we don't love ourselves, you know, and that doesn't mean perfectly. We all have our little like inner things that we're working through, but like when we don't care and we don't love about ourselves and we're trying to change and we're trying to hide who we are, then we attract the wrong person, because we're being inauthentic, and we, you know, attract, that's what happens. Like, if I'm pretending to be, I don't know, if I'm pretending to be a hamburger, I'm going to attract ketchup. But if I'm actually a hot dog, maybe I want mustard, you know? Like, it's kind of, you got to be who you are to get what you want. And what I
Love
think we
you
really
just,
want is to be loved, right?
yeah.
And so we want to love the other person, but we're really all selfish. We just want someone to love us too.
Right. We want the validation.
Of us who we actually are, not who we feel like we need to pretend to be.
And it's interesting because I don't know. This was one thing that my husband said, that so much of our relationship is built on sort of seeing someone emotionally react, like through their facial expressions, and then responding appropriately. So if you say something to me and I smile, like, oh, that's positive, or I want to keep doing that. In this situation, they don't have anything like that. Or if you were to say something and I'm like there's none of that.
Well, we talk about how quickly we make a first impression and how quickly we make judgment on people, in that first impression. And a lot of
That's
that
like 8 seconds.
yeah, and right. And a lot of that are, I think, due to, or when you're communicating with someone and you just get a vibe from them, that could be like micro expressions. Like it could just be something. Like you might not consciously know what you're doing, but there are times when I'm talking to someone and I'll see their face do something and I'll be like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah.
What just happened there? Like, did you hear me wrong? Or like you definitely just had a reaction to what I just said. So let's talk about that. I wouldn't do that on a first date. I wouldn't be like, let's talk about that. But like when I'm really, in it with somebody, I'm picking up on things that are going on with them that like I might not even know consciously I'm picking up on, and vice versa. That's why the in-person date, if you want to eventually get to a place where you're like living your life with somebody, in-person dates are so important before you decide. Although I will say there are people who have had arranged marriages and are very happy, and there are people who, maybe haven't met each other and ends up being happy. But there's also like usually a cultural decision for commitments to work through stuff, because that's a huge thing too. Like both sides, no matter how much you love somebody in the beginning, has to be committed that when things get crappy, because they will, you guys are both committed to work through it. Yeah. So that commitment there is a huge component also for things that are going to last. And I feel like this group of people are just like, will I still feel the butterflies that I felt on day one through the panel after I see them in the real world? And like, that's just not how love works. Not long lasting, active love.
Right.
It's not a passive thing that you just feel. It's like it's a commitment that both sides make, that like you want to share your life with each other, like what you do with like a really close friend, and you have sex with them.
Which was brought up in this episode, but we'll have to save it for next week.
Well,
I think next week we also should chat specifically about our couple that got engaged.
Yes, we will start there.
Yeah, like the things that led them to know will be interesting to discuss.
But you guys definitely hop on under here, put some comments in of what you thought. I know you can, it's Netflix, so you can just binge watch the whole thing. But if you had any thoughts about the premise that you wanted to put in here, or any like even tidbits of information that if you've like looked at the blogs and like, found some stuff out, like share it. We would love to see what your comments are. This is like all fun. I'm eating the popcorn. So we'll see you guys next Monday, right? Are we going to be on next Monday, Jen? I think we said
I that's the week that I can't.
Okay, so we're going to be on one day next week, but probably not Monday. So we will let you know when we know. All right, guys, have a great week, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.